Hey, everybody, it's Jason McLaren with Leadership Loading Podcast, and today we're talking about leadership and intuition. My guest today is Terry Wildeman, and she's a military spouse and has trained over 11,000 transitioning vets and draws on her roles as a mindset, business, and leadership accelerator, certified coach, speaker, and author to develop entrepreneurs and professionals into unstoppable, resilient, and prosperous leaders. That's going to make her a great guest today. Terry, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege to be here.
So yeah, can you tell us a little bit about your affiliation with the military and your a little bit about your background?
Well, 33 years ago, my husband put the ring on my finger and said, "Honey, I need to talk with you." Now we had dated for 7 years. And I'm like, "Talk to me about what?" And that's how my military spouse career started. And it was very interesting because he was able to shield me from a lot of the responsibilities of being a military spouse. And I had the shock of my life after I spoke to a few spouses. But it's something that has, being married for 33 years to this amazing man who was in for 25 years, retired, and now teaches at the U.S. Naval War College. And I also have a daughter who's a lieutenant commander in the Navy. So we're a big Navy family, and it's all about service. It really is about service, giving back, and just loving this amazing country.
Definitely, I think that's a great reason for you to be on our show today, because you kind of understand the background on not only the military life, but transitioning into the life after the military, and talking to individuals and people out there that are trying to make that leap. One of the biggest questions I hear is, how do I influence others if I came out as, E2, E3, and, they just think they don't have that credibility. So how can we influence others with confidence and credibility as, those transitioning?
I was a businesswoman before I became a Navy spouse. And I don't care what rank you are. It's about who you are as an individual. It's who you are as a person. And if you're a person with high values, if you're a person who really believes in what you're doing, how you're doing it, and your positive values are integrated in everything that you do, rank doesn't matter. That was something I had a hard time with as a spouse, to be very frank with you, because again, I was a businesswoman and then went, first, and I didn't understand I do understand, but in the very beginning, it was hard for me to get really clear. And this is some of the issues that transitioning folks have when they get into civilian world. I was a civilian going into the military world, and I had a real hard time with the separation of officers and enlisted and this. I wasn't getting it. I was having a real hard time. And that's what a lot of transitioning folks step into when they get into the the workplace, the civilian workplace. So I understand what is involved when you're doing something so strategically for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, or however long it is, whether you're separating or whether you're retiring. It is a very different lifestyle and a very different way of looking at the workplace. And it's about patience, but being, most importantly, true to yourself and who you are. Because the military offers phenomenal training and phenomenal discipline that is missing in the workplace today. And that discipline is how you influence. Now, the key is what I call, you've got to step out of the box, flexible boundaries. You've got to be flexible. Not everybody is. So, but that flexibility to be able to know that you're in a specific place at a specific time in order to share but to listen and to just be who you are authentically.
Definitely. I know that was one thing I was lacking. When I got out, I had a really short turnaround, about 20 days from, hey, you're getting out, to I was walking off the base.
Ouch.
And yeah.
Oh.
And so I think that was one, I didn't have that confidence is what it was
Mm.
I got out and, like you said, I got great training. I was a fire officer. So I was leading people, and I just didn't think that would translate when I got out to the civilian world. And I didn't think about all the skills I had learned were directly
Mm.
transferable to the civilian sector,
Yeah.
because I hadn't come up through those ranks in those corporate worlds. And it, it really was, something I had to learn later on. And it wasn't until I got a kick in the rear end by one of my civilian supervisors that I was able to, excel to where I'm at now. So.
What, I'm curious, what did your civilian supervisor need to kick you for?
I think, probably telling on myself, but I thought, I had come to a spot and I was like, well, I've earned this spot, and I pretty much was able to do what I wanted to because I was a manager level, and I took advantage of that and tried to do basically slack off. And he pulled me aside and pretty much told me, this isn't professional, this isn't ethical. Um, but I just got used to, or not got used to, but thought that I was entitled to that because I was like, I've risen up to this level and this is what I should get. And so, and now I hold my followers to the same principles, and, but yeah, I think
That's really interesting. And I congratulate your supervisor for doing that, because it's obvious that you have the skill sets and the knowledge to be able to be a fantastic leader. And the thing with being a great leader is you never ask of anybody that which you will not do yourself. And that always, with leadership, when I teach leadership, and I'm passionate about it, I actually owned my own leadership center from 2001 to 2009. One of the things that I really get into, try and get into, not, I don't like to use the word try, I am committed to helping our rising leaders to understand is that just because you're getting up here does not mean that you lose sight of what's going on in the trenches, because the people who are in the trenches, the people who are interacting with the public, the people who are really interacting with the employees, the people who are really your frontline workers, they're the ones who have more knowledge than you do, believe it or not, because they are the ones who know exactly what is wrong, what isn't, what needs to be fixed. And if a really good leader has the ear of the folks who are in the bottom line and listen, you're going to be very, very successful, because you're connected with these people. And so many people rise through the ranks, so many, and they forget. Case in point is the TV show, The Undercover Boss. There is not one episode where the undercover boss, who is usually the CEO, is humbled by what his or her frontline workers experience. Every single show. And they learn how to reconnect with their people. And that's what's really important. It's the connection and the valuing of every single employee who works with you.
definitely. And that's one thing I learned after I moved out of that role. I got promoted into a director role, and then I actually had people reporting to me again after this is my first frontline supervisor position since the military. And I used all those key points there.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest one I think that you touched on is not not wanting to do something that they would do, or not being. And I would always, if they kind of backpedaled on something I asked them to do, I said, well, let's go do it. And I'd go out there and do it with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Well, it was really interesting to me. Again, I was a businesswoman before I became a Naval person. I'm saying that for a reason, because one of the things I never really got into was the the differences. Everybody to me was valuable, and the ship was on deployment, and we brought together we had a team. God, it's been so many years now. I have to forget the language. We had a group of spouses who were creating the big party for when the ship got back, on and on and on. And I'm of Hispanic. I'm Cuban descent, and I invited everybody to my house and made a big Cuban dinner. And I gave everybody a little gift, an angel that I had made and a rose. And as you can tell behind me, I've got my angels on this side, got my left brain books on this side, and I sit right in the middle. So I'm very much, I teach leaders how to integrate the practical, tactical, and the logical with the emotional, the energetic, and the spiritual, and the intuitive. So that is what I embody. And so I gave them all this little angel thing that I made out of macaroni, for crying out loud. It was so much fun. I did it with my girls, and we had a really good time. And one of the spouses started to cry, and I couldn't understand why. And what she said to me was, in 15 years that her husband was in the military, that her family was in the military, she had never, ever, ever been at a CO's spouse's house. And my jaw just dropped, because for me, it was just very natural. For me, it was, my God, you're my team. You're my buds. You're helping me put this together. Are you kidding me? And that's the difference when you're on the outside looking in, is we tend to look at things a little bit differently. That's all it is. And I will never forget that moment as long as I live. And it was one of those moments that touched me. And it was a leadership moment that helped me understand the importance of really being there compassionately for every single person who works for you as a leader and works with you.
Definitely. Not a couple episodes, probably 10 or 12 episodes ago on this podcast, we had a whole series about resilient leadership. And I think that kind of blends into that about, leading others. You don't always have to be that hard charging leader. Like you said, a lot of them think, well, I can't invite my peers to my house because that is a perception issue, or that then they'll think we're too friendly or something like that. And so I think that kind of resilient leadership helps, because they get that bond with you, but it's not so personal that they're going to be unprofessional. I know when I moved into my current house, my team volunteered to come help me move, and they didn't feel like they had to do it. I didn't ask them to do it. I just mentioned I was moving. They're like, when do we need to be there? And that's when you've made it as a resilient leader, when your team does things without you having to tell them. So.
And resilience is one of the big areas that I specialize in, because personally, I burned out multiple times. And resilience is key to being healthy. And the healthier you are, the better you are as a leader, the better your relationships, the better your work. And when you're resilient, and it's not just about being resilient, it's resilient and positive, and compassionate. Because resilient in and of itself isn't necessarily a great leader, but it's the resilient, the compassion, the positiveness together, the triad there. That's what really ignites great leadership, because nothing feels better than when somebody who is a leader who you work with recognizes there's an issue and sits down to just have a conversation and ask the open-ended questions to help you find solutions to whatever it is that's going on.
Definitely. That kind of goes back to my earlier story about my supervisor giving me a kick to the rear. Having those conversations, and that can help you break through into your next level of leadership. And that kind of touches on your background with self-sabotage. How do we make sure that we don't, self-sabotage ourselves?
Well, one of the things with self-sabotage is it can happen a lot every day in some way, shape, or form. The key is recognizing it. Say, for example, okay, you want to lose weight, okay? But you know that those potato chips aren't meant to go into your body. You self-sabotage there. So it comes in different layers, different levels. And one of the issues with self-sabotage is often it is really created by trapped emotions. And what do I mean by that? As we grow up, there are things that happen in our environment that we take on as kids and in teens and as in adulthood, and as we, as we grow and expand, and the emotions literally get trapped in our bodies. So what happens is we keep doing these behaviors and we don't understand why we can't cross the finish line in business, why we can't, why it's difficult to do this, why is it difficult to do that. And chances are, in my practice, what I find, my coaching practice, what I find is that when there's someone who's constantly self-sabotaging, through these tools and techniques that I use that I'm certified in now, as a holistic practitioner, we can get to the root causes of those behaviors and clear them out, dissolve them using muscle testing and acupuncture points, that kind of thing. And it is amazing how quickly it works. And it amplifies resilience, it amplifies positivity, it literally clears out the negative behavior. And what I love about it the most, and it's called emotion code or body code. I'm certified in both of these. And I also use emotional freedom technique. There's all different kinds of energy psychology tools. And I'm hesitant to use energy psychology, but that's the phrase that we use to assist people who have all different types of challenges to break through these self-sabotaging challenges that present themselves. And once they're clear, it is amazing what happens. A beautiful example is one of my recent clients. She's not military, but this young girl was personally, she was abused at the age of 8 by a relative. Parents knew about it and put her into therapy. Here she is 40 years old, and she was never right after that. And we just did one session, 1.5 sessions maybe. And I cleared out a whole bunch of stuff. And she's like, I've never felt like this in my entire life. We cleared out the self-sabotaging emotions that were created at the age of 8 with that specific incident. And it gave her life back. So there's a lot of tools out there right now for all of us to be able to heal from self-sabotaging BS that gets in our way of crossing that finish line and grabbing the gold ring.
That's a great story. I know I always tell everyone the military is what set me free. My self-sabotage at the beginning, growing up with my background, which is a whole other story, but just going into the military is what, set me apart. So
that helps. That's great. Military has helped a lot of people.
And you have a quick shift techniques?
Yes, it's a very simple technique that is part of my book that, where's my book? Where'd it go? This is a book that I wrote in 2016. It is now available via Kindle. And it is a very simple, very, very simple 4-step technique that will help you in 60 seconds reduce stress in the moment. And the 4 steps are: you take your attention from your head to your chest. You put your hand, imagine it being an air pump, put it on your chest, breathe in and out of your chest. Think of something that makes you feel really, really good, whether it's holding a baby, a puppy, whatever, taking a walk, jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, whatever it is that makes you feel really, really good. That visualization piece right there begins to reduce the cortisol levels in the body and increase the DHEA levels, which is what you want. And then the last part is sitting there being as resilient as you possibly can. And I encourage people to do this while they are brushing their teeth, getting dressed, driving into work, all different things. And I love to offer your audience the e-guide as well as the little card if they go to quickshiftzone.com. quickshiftzone.com. And this specific tool, a version of it, is pretty much what saved my life 20 years ago in 2001 when with the last burnout that I experienced. And it was like, wow. And it was the one thing. I knew I needed to do something differently. And it really helps tremendously because you're creating connection between the head and the heart. You're creating coherence. The brain and the head is, the energy field can be measured 2 inches away from the head. The brain and the heart can be measured 3 to 6 feet away from the body in a 360-degree circumference. And this has been scientifically proven. This is not Terry speaking off the top of my head. So the goal is to connect here and here to create coherence and clarity and focus.
Definitely. And you held up your book. What was the name of the book for those on the audio?
The Enchanted Boardroom?
Enchanted Boardroom. I'll put the link in our
Evolve into an unstoppable intuitive leader.
Awesome.
And that's old now. There's a new one that's going to be coming out by next year called Limitless Prosperity, Awaken the Possibilities for Entrepreneurs.
Awesome. And what would be your 1-minute leadership tip?
Listen to your gut. Listen to your intuition. Always. Several people have said, oh, well, it's not important. It is. Right now, people are realizing that listening to your intuition is one of the most important things that you can learn as a leader. Why? Because on a very tactical, practical, logical level, everything may be fine, but there's something inside of you that's just, that edge, they're nugging there. Something isn't just right. And that is the time you start to ask open-ended questions. You get into discovery zone, you become the detective, and you start to ask these questions to find out exactly what it is that isn't right until your body feels really, really good. Your body gets the answers before your mind and your heart does. So the moment you start listening to your body, listening to the words that come in, listening to the images that come, listen to how you feel, that is intuition, and it is huge. And I know for myself, one piece that you and I didn't talk about, I was in law enforcement in my early 20s, and it was my intuitive skill set, which I didn't even realize how deep it was at that time, that really got me out of trouble a few times because it kept me out of danger in the time when if I had walked into it, it would have been an absolute disaster. So intuition is huge. Always listen to it.
Definitely. That's that whole situational awareness, and what do they say, 93% of what you say doesn't come out of your mouth. It's, your body language. So I think that's a good example.
60% is body language, 30% is tone, 10% words. And those numbers are rounded.
Yeah. Good deal. Well, Terry, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for being a guest and sharing your insight with everyone.
Well, thank you for asking me. I love sharing this wisdom that has been hard earned. Excuse me, with folks who are listening.
And then how can we get a hold of you if we want to chat with you?
You can go to intuitiveleadership.com. All my information is there. You can also go to awakenthepossibilities.com, and there's a podcast there. And you can join me in my Facebook group, Awaken the Possibilities.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, and we'll let you get back to your day.
And thank you. You take very good care of yourself.